What's a thing you strongly dislike about Reddit? Everyone here with opinions about what's wrong with the concept of Reddit, so I'll chime in with what's wrong with actual Reddit. The search function is useless. Exactly. Sometimes I want to search for a post but all you can find are private subreddits. It's honestly easier and more effective to go to Google and type your search plus Reddit. It's weird that I have to search a website by going to a completely different website. You'd think we'd have nailed search bar technology by now, but apparently not. Even better if you add site reddit.com to your search. The site Google Doc is really useful and filters out everything that is not on. I'm a lawyer. I see a lot of very authoritative, highly upvoted posts here that are very incorrect. I also see a lot of misinformation being parroted in the comments. In the past, I've tried to correct it, but people will argue with me and tell me I'm the idiot. Yep. Legalab/r/ is full of advice that is guaranteed to get you sued, arrested, or laughed out of a courtroom. The TL doctor of it is, a guy was getting a divorce and asked Reddit what to do. Reddit advised him to consult with every family law attorney in town. That way the attorneys are conflicted out and the wife couldn't retain them. They followed that terrible advice and ended up getting sanctioned for abusive process. That's both sad and hilarious at the same time. If you look at his username, the judge eventually threw out the case against him for it and just called him an idiot. I'm a doctor and I've just stopped correcting others. I've been told I must be a terrible doctor or you're a pathetic liar, you are pretending to be a doctor etc for correcting an utterly and undeniably incorrect medical fact. But because I got there after all of its upvotes and gold, I'm just some FN idiot trying to shit on everyone as they marvel at fake facts. The problem is sometimes it can actually be dangerous. Which goes the same for your line of work too. I got into an argument with some dumb fuck about how to give CPR. I even linked the guidelines. It's not like we're talking really intricate medical science, pretty bread and butter for a first aider. Naturally, as I arrived after this hero posts their bullshit, incorrect story, I was downvoted in the focus of pretty pathetic online bullying. Like, okay, go give your relative in cardiac arrest inadequate CPR, because Professor Butfka69 says so on Reddit. Jesus Christ. Anyway, when you actually look at a lot of the backquote facts that folk proudly parade with authority but no source, often they are just baseless bullshit. I feel ya pain. FCK this site and FCK coronavirus for fist fucking my plans for the next 6 months. There was a quote I saw a while ago that was something along the lines of the more I see Reddit experts talk about a subject of which I'm actually knowledgeable, the more I wonder why I take to heart what people say on the subjects of which I'm not. Yeah. It's one of my favorites as Reddit is, in and of itself, such a perfect example. I was going to mention it in my original comment, but couldn't be asked typing, and presumed nobody would bother reading anyway. It's Michael Crichton's backquote effect if you like, mentioned in a speech he made in early 2000s called Why Speculate. He calls this phenomenon the backquote Murray-Gell-Mann amnesia effect. Media carries with it a credibility that is totally undeserved. You have all experienced this in what I call the Murray-Gell-Mann amnesia effect. I call it by this name because I once discussed it with Murray-Gell-Mann, and by dropping a famous name I imply greater importance to myself and to the effect than it would otherwise have. Briefly stated, the Gell-Mann amnesia effect works as follows. You open the newspaper to an article on some subject you know well. In Murray's case, physics. In mine, show business. You read the article and see the journalist has absolutely no understanding of either the facts or the issues. Often, the article is so wrong it actually presents the story backward, reversing cause and effect. I call these the wet streets cause rain stories. Papers full of them. In any case, you read with exasperation or amusement the multiple errors in a story and then turn the page to national or international affairs and read with renewed interest, as if the rest of the newspaper was somehow more accurate about far-off Palestine than it was about the story you just read. You turn the page and forget what you know. That is the Gell-Mann amnesia effect. I'd point out it does not operate in other arenas of life. In ordinary life, if somebody consistently exaggerates or lies to you, you soon discount everything they say. In court, there is the legal doctrine of falsus in falsus in omnibus, which means untruthful in one part, untruthful in all. But when it comes to the media, we believe against evidence that it is probably worth our time to read other parts of the paper, when, in fact, it almost certainly isn't. The only possible explanation for our behavior is amnesia. Thanks for reminding me. I can't think of the right word, but it's especially seen in subs like r/amethysol and r/relationship_advice. The people on there just think in a way that's completely unrealistic and not at all like the real world. Like, yeah, you can have your opinions and shit, but almost everything I see is absurd because that's just not how people in real life think and act. They should make a sub called r/IamThehole, where we share stories of what pricks we are. That's what I've always said though. I know I'm an asshole. I don't need you assholes telling me. Plus we all know what subs like that are really for. Validation and humble brag. I stopped supporting my brother because he spends all of the money on drugs, and after he or I put him in rehab, he's mad at me. Am I the shoal? Those relationship subs are stupid too. People act like the posters haven't already made up their mind and are just looking for pats on the back. People act like the stories aren't horribly one-sided. Oh, I told her she should dump that loser. I had a productive day. FCK off with that. They're all wasting their time. You are not making the world a better place. Often objectively incorrect information gets upvoted, and even if it is corrected, the correction doesn't get a quarter of the attention. People speak with authority, and if it sounds plausible, people buy into it. I've fallen into this trap myself. Edit. I feel the need to clarify. I'm not talking about matters of opinion or preference, or questions that are not answered definitively, or examples of multiple right answers, or technicalities, or politics, or anything controversial in any capacity. I'm talking about things that either are, or aren't, and the facts are established without ambiguity or bias. One such mistake I routinely encounter, maybe not the best example but still, is people mixing up the definitions of right to work and at will employment as these phrases pertain to labor in the US. Not even a question of how you feel about these concepts, or how they vary by state, or how they fit into political platforms, or how they compare to other countries, but strictly the definitions of the terms routinely get mixed up. I get it. They are vague terms and intuitively the name of one does seem more apt for the definition of the other. Still, this mix-up happens in an authoritative top upvoted post and now you've got a host of people who think they've learned something new, who actually learned the wrong thing, and the correction may be sufficiently buried, or just comes too late to do any good. And the worst consequence, some of those people who learned the wrong thing will now go on to propagate that mistaken knowledge, not deliberately but because they simply learned it wrong and put too much stock in the source of the info to fact check. GIF of cop who accidentally crashes his patrol car at the same time as the guy in the backseat slipped his cuffs and was trying to set it on fire with a lighter. Top reply. Actually, this was purposefully intentional, and it was the only thing the officer could have done in this situation, because he didn't know what the guy in the backseat was trying to do. I about quit this fucking site. I fucking hate this pseudo expert hit. Everyone seems to bear an equally weighted opinion. If you're qualified to write in something, but the armchair internet experts think you're wrong and or they don't like it, then you may as well not have added to the discussion at all. This is infuriating, especially when the actual expert spends a bunch of time and energy to write out a thorough informative comment, and it gets downvoted. Meanwhile, the armchair expert throws out some bullshit, misleading one-liner, and it gets upvoted. Edit. I feel really strongly about this, not only because it's frustrating for the actual experts, but because that frustration deters experts from contributing to discussions on this site. Why waste the time if no one listens anyway? This, in turn, erodes the quality of discussion overall, and we end up with threads filled with meme jokes and towers of nice instead of useful substantive explanations and/or evidence of things. Yup. It's not like I've spent years of my life honing my expertise, but the other person read a clickbait article and suddenly knows the right of things. For example, I have taught college statistics. I'm a math PhD student. One can make statistically valid conclusions from small sample sizes, even 30, and yet many people on r/science dismiss any study out of hand if it has less than 1,000 subjects, especially if the conclusion is a little unpopular, without thinking about study design. Or they have no idea how experiments work, and don't realize that the same exact people don't have to evaluate both resumes in order for us to conclude that one resume performs better than the other in the job market. Or they just believe that conclusions made with math are infallible. This is a problem with the internet in general, but Reddit is a core offender in consolidating and amplifying fringe political beliefs. Before all of this, a person with a fringe, 1 in 100 political belief would be forced to confront the reality that almost nobody agreed with them. Whenever they expressed their political beliefs in the real world, there was only a 1% chance that the person they were speaking to would agree, and this would give them the best chance of reconsidering their position. With the internet, and especially places dedicated to custom political communities like Reddit, these people can now congregate together and trick themselves into believing that they hold normal, mainstream beliefs. They can also trick others into believing that their beliefs are more widespread than they really are. With a population of 320 million in the US, this means that even a 1% fringe belief can attract up to 3.2 million participants all focused together in one place. Add in the fact that social media allows us to curate our feed so that we no longer see opposition messaging, and suddenly you have a group of millions of people who hear only themselves. This tiny band of fringe lunatics begin to think that they are the people, and that their beliefs are not just mainstream, but possibly the majority opinion. This then has a tendency to snowball, as fringe communities that are effective at brigading other communities can create a false sense of size and scope, thereby attracting others to their cause. This issue is reflected on both sides of the political aisle. There are comparatively few KKK members in real life, and while Reddit in particular has done a fairly decent, though far from imperfect, job of expelling the far-right fringe, web presences like Stormfront have allowed them to network and grow. Thus the recent resurgence in places like Charlottesville. Similarly, there are comparatively few actual Marxists in real life, but if you judge their demographic weight based on Reddit representation, you'd think that they were a major faction of the Democratic Party. This amplification also causes demonization across the aisle. While most of the time we are sheltered by our little online echo chambers, occasionally these fringe messages bleed through, and we start to think that the Republicans are mostly KKK members, or Democrats are mostly Marxists. I do not know what the solution is. I don't know if there is one.